Welcome to Ideagen TV. Today we have with us an incredible friend and guest here on Ideagen TV, James Keach, award-winning actor, producer, director, changing the world. James, welcome.
Good to see you, George.
So great to see you, James, and always just such a pleasure to have a conversation with you. I stand in awe, as you know, of your work, and I'd like to begin this interview by asking, why is storytelling so incredibly important to help to change the world?
Well, I think storytelling, obviously, from the cave dwellers to today, they tell the stories of their times, and we're all here for a very limited amount of time, and we use stories to pass forward what has happened in our lifetimes. So and I think that the important thing about storytelling is that if you can change the trajectory of people's human experience through a story, that you've done something, especially if it's a good story and it's a positive one, then you've left behind something that's very important.
Well, and that's incredible because you've had so many stories that you've told, and we've seen a lot of them. Glenn Campbell, Johnny Cash, and the most recent Linda Ronstadt, which we'll talk about later. But James, what was it like on your first day directing a film, acting in a film, and how were they different?
Well, I was actually talking to somebody the other day about being in front of a camera, and I still, to this day, even though I was an actor for many, many years, I get uncomfortable. I get uncomfortable doing Zoom stuff, and I don't know why. I'm becoming I'm at the point in my life where it doesn't really matter. But anyway, my brother, who I'm very close to, was doing a movie called The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, and I came to the set, and I'd never been on a big Hollywood movie set. And these giant cameras, in those days, the cameras were just huge, and it scared the heck out of me to look at this thing. And he called me Jimmy. Jimmy, what you got to do is you got to say hello to the camera every morning. You say, "Good morning, Mitch." That was a Mitchell camera. "Good morning, Mitch. How you doing, man?" And you look right at him and you make him your friend. And he said, and from that point forward, I started behaving that way. I know it sounds nuts, he says, but because it's there to help you. It's not there to hinder you. But somehow when you get on a set, it's terrifying the first time. You got all these people, hundreds of guys and men and women standing around doing their jobs, and all of a sudden they go, and action, and it's on you. It's about you. You got to come through, and so it's a craft. You have to learn how to do it, and you have to be willing to surrender your self-consciousness. You have to be able to be willing to let that go. And I think so often, many of us in our lives, whether you often heard the thing in public speaking, people get very nervous about public speaking. And when I would teach acting, I would say to them, we all have this little critic that lives out here. It's always telling us, you can't do that. You shouldn't say this. You shouldn't say that. You got to say to the critic, "Thanks for sharing, but go away. You're not helping me. I need to do this." Because we all have it. The critic is always working on us. So that's part of being mindful and being evolved as a person. It takes time to do that. So
that is awesome. And so how does that differ from being behind the camera and directing? It's obviously different, but where do you see, what is more sort of impactful from your vantage point?
Well, I think it depends on what type of directing you're doing. If you're directing scripted films where the actors are playing characters, each character has a specific intention to push the story forward. Even if you're playing you're playing the bad guy, your intention is to do something, or you're good, so your intention is to be to tell the story. And I keep looking for truth in both instances. I keep looking for somebody, if you're doing a documentary, if they're canned statements that and you can always tell it. You know, you can certainly you've been in the political world. You know when people are, you know, they're reading from here or reading from here, and they're not coming from here. You know, and so what you want to do is have people come from here in both instances, both in narrative filmmaking and in documentary filmmaking, because that's what connects with the audience. If they feel that their heart, if somebody is talking to you from their heart and their souls, then you know you connect with them, hopefully, anyway.
Well, and that's what's so fascinating about your current focus on telling these incredibly powerful stories, these narratives, these documentaries that you're putting together in one of the most impactful ways that I've ever seen in my life. The Glenn Campbell story, the Johnny Cash film, I'll Be Me, the Glenn Campbell story, and Walk the Line, Johnny Cash, and now Linda Ronstadt's film documentary. What drives you in helping to tell these stories, and what do you see as the biggest impact, James, from being able to highlight and connect celebrity with, for example, some of these diseases that are, you know, have no treatments and sometimes definitely no cures? What do you see as the accelerant behind those?
Well, I think in the case of Alzheimer's, in the case of Glenn Campbell, he wanted the audience to know what Alzheimer's looked like up close and personal, and he wasn't afraid to show us warts and all, the gnarly truth. And I think it was important for people to see it, to make people more aware of just what families go through. What in the family, his family wanted other people to see what caregivers go through, and I think it's inspired a new generation of financial support for the Alzheimer's situation that we have in our country. I mean, 1 out of 2 of us who hit the age of 85 are going to have Alzheimer's. So it's a pretty staggering statistic. And Glenn, you know, was able to connect on an emotional level like never any other film that had ever been made about Alzheimer's, because, you know, you have a guy who's singing. I thought we were going to do 5 shows when they asked me to do it, and it turned out to be 171 with a guy with Alzheimer's, you know. So you know, it and it came from doing Walk the Line, which is a narrative film, but Johnny's story was about, you know, finding God, and, you know, and also dealing with his own addiction. You know, I mean, all of us have stuff. And I had somebody call me up after watching Walk the Line, and they were having real serious problems with their marriage, and I guess there'd been some infidelity or something that was not, you know, which in our world is not. It's been going on for a long time. In long-term marriages. At any rate, he said, she said, I want to thank you for making the film. So why is that? She said, because I've forgiven my husband. I've chosen to forgive him. And so the film was about forgiveness, you know, and about forgiving yourself and about forgiving others. And that really inspired me. It's inspiration when, you know, you can, in this case, I knew the person, but there's so many people that I will never meet, and God willing, they will be affected by the films that we leave behind, and they'll see something of themselves in there, and hopefully be entertained, and you know, that's what.
And when you see that, James, it has to be incredibly rewarding, obviously, but also a testament to you and your leadership and your experience, and you're choosing to do this. I mean, no one's saying, James, here you go, at this point in your career, you're going to tell these incredibly powerful stories. I mean, what's beautiful about where you are is you're able to pick and choose the stories that you tell. And right? I mean,
well, yeah, but somehow they choose me.
That's right. That's right.
Johnny asked me to do it. Glenn asked me to do it. You know, yeah, I figure there's got to be something working here. They come and
yeah,
they ask you to do it, and you go, okay, you know, let's see what happens. You know, and they don't all work out. Believe me, there's the road is paved, with some bumps in it. Let me tell you, it's not easy making these things either. But
Well,
at the end of the day, it's very gratifying to know that you've touched some people and their families.
yeah, and that's such a good point. I mean, I have seen personally and professionally the millions of people that you've touched through your work. I mean, it's just profound, and it has to be incredibly rewarding. And here's Hollywood now, right? It's a powerful medium. It's a very powerful medium, and you're part of that. You're in Hollywood. How can it be used for good? How can this Hollywood medium be used for good?
Well, it can be used for good by telling stories of people, men and women who have, I think, made a difference to the human condition. It's also very important for people to laugh, and to be entertained. So it can't all be, movies that, I mean, great love stories, great, I think entertainment is very, very important. And I think it's the opportunity. I mean, it's our opportunity now. We used to, I mean, literature is very important in reading, but I think now the medium is film, is what we're doing right now. This is how our kids communicate every single day, and so it's back to storytelling, and it's also being able to choose your hero and choose what they want, hopefully if they're noble things that they want, and show what's preventing them from getting it, and then sharing that story that Petty Chayefsky used to say, who is your hero, what do they want, what's preventing them from getting it. He was a great writer, and that's kind of the story of our lives. Who are we, what do we want, and what's preventing us from getting it, and what's going on today with COVID-19. Who is our hero? The scientists. What do they want? A cure. What's preventing them from getting it? A lot of stuff. And and the same thing with what's going on in our streets today with the riots that have been taking place. These people, Black people, they want to be treated equally, not just a bunch of people talking, oh, it's terrible what happened. We have to do things that make it so. We have to make sure that the laws are changed and that they are honored and that they're not relegated to live in the ghettos. I mean, there's so much work to be done, but it has to be the collective consciousness of everybody, and film and television and this medium can help the cure. It can help tell the stories.
That's exactly right. And, shifting just a bit to an issue that I know you're very well versed in and very supportive of, and that's the 17 global goals of the United Nations. Those 17 broad goals that talk about things like what you just alluded to, like equality for all, eradicating poverty, access to education, energy, all clean water, partnerships, all the things that you're working on daily in your work in storytelling and Hollywood and all the work that you're doing connect to all of these 17 goals. How do you believe we can achieve these goals? I mean, do you think it's going to happen by 2030, James? Do you think, what's happened in the past few months with the pandemic and beyond have either set us back, or do you think we're going to now have a greater consciousness and maybe the world comes together in a more cohesive way? What's your sense there?
Well, my sense is that we have to be in the efforts business. That I can't tell you whether we're going to achieve it by 2030. I can tell you that we won't achieve it if we don't make the efforts to get there.
That's right.
And so I think that's the business that we have to be in, the efforts business, and we gotta do everything we can and from an individual standpoint. It's not them who's going to fix it. It's
Right.
us.
That's right.
And so often we think it's somewhere out there. Somebody out there is going to fix my life. Well, that might be true in terms of a bank loan or something like that. But in terms of the spiritual condition of all of us, it's an inside job.
That's right.
It's an inside job. And so we have to be in the efforts business. And as a society, we have to be, I believe, more conscious of the plight of others. We cannot be indifferent and apathetic to other people's situation. We just can't. And that's what's happened over and over and over again. It just keeps repeating itself, and it's sad. But we need voices of people to stand forward and not be worried about being elected again, be worried about being in their values today, stand for their values now, what's right, not what's going to serve me, but what's going to serve the world and the collective consciousness of humanity. And that's what the United Nations, God willing, is about, and that's why it's important, the work that you guys are doing. So.
Yeah. Thank you, James. Thank you. That's incredible perspective, of course. And so how do you believe the global pandemic, in your opinion, has changed Hollywood and media forever?
Well,
how?
First of all, a lot of the pitch sessions that we do now, instead of driving all the way downtown, we do them like this. We tell the stories, and the writers go to work after a Zoom meeting, as opposed to, so it's changing. And in that sense, I am not sure how the movie sets are going to come back. And finding a cure is very, very important for the I mean, imagine doing a love scene in Hollywood, and being worried about having them, having COVID. It's going to change everything, but we'll evolve there. We'll get there. We'll get.
Yeah, good point. It's a good point. And just simply eating out at a restaurant has changed until there's at least a vaccine or some type of treatment. And you see so many millions of people now out of work because of that. How has your work specifically and perspective been changed by our current global circumstances?
Well, I have films that I have to shoot, and I'm not able to. It's really hard to go shoot right now. It's hard to get on a plane, put all our film equipment, all our cameras, gear, fly to Atlanta, go interview people, it's near to impossible, because first of all, you get a lot of people who say, I don't think I want to travel, and then, so it's made it very, very difficult. We're actually today, I've got to figure out a shooting schedule, we have to do a little addition to another film that we made. And, I got to figure out, well, do I hire a cameraman in Atlanta? Do I not go there? Do I not get on the, it makes it so different and difficult, but, we'll figure it out.
That's right.
We just will. We have to.
We will, and we have to for sure.
Yeah.
And so just shifting a bit, what, James, is your favorite film documentary that you developed and why?
Oh,
I know it's a tough one. They're all great.
My favorite film, I think well, I love Walk the Line, and I love what that was about, because it was also about a very dear friend of friends, June and John of mine. That's a tough question. They're all my children, George.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know that's a tough question, and it's interesting to hear. I know they're all special in different ways, so it's hard to single out one.
They all have one thing in common. They're all spiritual journeys of the soul.
Incredible.
And they're all those people that we've worked on, telling their stories. They all are unique and different in their own way, but somehow each one of them has changed my life. And so that, for me as a filmmaker, that's one of the things that is really interesting. You go in and you say, I didn't know this about them. I didn't know about their music. I didn't know about where they came from. I didn't know about their parents. I didn't know so many things. And then by the end of it, you know them very, very well. But what Glenn Campbell would constantly say, I got to tell the truth. You got to tell the truth, James. You got to tell the truth. By the end of it, it's like, I wouldn't even move the golf ball, an inch, because I wouldn't be hitting the shot that I was supposed to, that kind of thing. It's like,
gosh.
And Linda, the grace in which she lives with her Parkinson's, she does not want to talk about it. She does not want me to talk about it as a filmmaker. Whereas some people would say, oh, let's feel sorry for me, and I have this thing. No, she says, I am not Parkinson's. I have it, but I am not Parkinson's. So they're teachers. All these people are teachers. So that's also the power of film. If you can create characters that can teach you some, I'm not saying they all have to be, heavy and, I learned from Will Ferrell a lot in his comedies. I love to laugh,
Yeah.
and I love to laugh.
Love Will Ferrell.
Yeah, but because he's always winking at the audience. He's always saying, this isn't really real. I'm playing a character.
Right.
And I'm gonna have some fun here, which is a message to all of us. Enjoy your life, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Fun. Have some laughs along the way. Just don't hurt anybody while you're doing it,
That's right. That's right. So I guess that's perfect. A perfect segue to what, if you could, what would you change? What is one thing in the world you would change if you had that magic wand and could do it today?
I would change the values of politicians in our country. I would have them become what the West Point motto is: duty, honor, country. We will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I would like to bring back honor and truth and trust. I used to believe that when the government said something, I used to believe when newspapers said something, oh, well, that's the truth. Well, I've discovered that isn't the truth, that it's just somebody's opinion trying to sell a newspaper. And I've discovered that in my lifetime that the government, a lot of times they're out for political gains and they're trying to manipulate their side of things so that they can have an economic gain down the line.
Right.
That's what I would change. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I just want to believe that they're honorable people with deep values, and that they believe what they believe for real. It's good to have Democrats and Republicans. It's good to have independent free speech, but it's not good to have people that are without values.
Well, I think, in we've heard a lot of this in interviews like this, where there's not really one trusted source of information anymore on anything. I mean, if you want to find out information on X topic, you Google it and 30 million results come up. And so while there's been a wonderful increase in the number of sources of information, look, when I was a kid, we had the evening news. Well, like it or not, we all sat there with my grandparents and we watched the news, and that was the news of the day. And it was, you had the Surgeon General, and the Surgeon General was the authority on health matters in the United States or whatever. And you would say, okay, the Surgeon General issued a report on X. Now you have 30 million sources of health information. Anything you want to hear, anything you believe, you can just Google it and you'll live in that world. And I think that's part of the issue, is that there's almost too much information and there's no stamp of approval on what it is that, this is legit. This is the correct, unabated source of information, right? Including any source that you just mentioned. So it's frustrating for a lot of people across the planet, not just in the United States, across the planet. So it's incredible perspective that you bring. And I think, politics is another one. I mean, it is what it is. So why is it important, James, to highlight physical challenges of folks like you do, like well-known celebrities? Like, why do you find that to be so powerful? Why do they find you to be the perfect person to help tell that story? And then how does that then help accelerate what we talked about a little bit earlier, treatments and or potential cures? How does that all come together?
Well, I don't know if I'm the perfect person for any of it, but I do know that all of us are going to have something. Sooner or later, the guy in the white coat's going to say, James, we got a problem. And so it's how people deal with the circumstances of their life. And I think that there's lessons in that for all of us. How do we deal with, everybody's got stuff, and it's how we deal with it. And it's also the acceptance of what life is. So often people in Hollywood all over the country, they have to, and I'm not against Botox and I'm not against, plastic surgery. I'm not saying that, but so often they don't accept who they are, just as they are. They want to change who they are all the time and kind of, and I don't mean it's okay to want to change, but it's not okay to want to hide, and to hide the truth. And so I think, so often people that I've known that have been ill, both mentally or physically, when they share their truth, they are freer, and their lives become more enriched, because then all of a sudden people connect with them. And if they push them away and they don't tell the truth about how they're feeling and what the situation is, then there's no way to solve it, and there's no way to feel the compassion and empathy that they would like to have. So, I'm not necessarily attracted to people that have ailments. I just know that we all do, and it just happened that in this instance, a couple of these people did have that situation.
Yeah, and you're harnessing the power of the medium to be able to highlight that story. Clinical trials, the dearth of participants in these clinical trials to help accelerate the development of a treatment or a cure for so many diseases. I mean, you've helped, by storytelling, by helping to bring these real stories of individuals that happen to be very well known. So then that helps someone connect with someone who perhaps was their idol, like a Johnny Cash or a Glenn Campbell or a Linda Ronstadt, for example, to say, my gosh, I adored them. They have this ailment, whatever it may be. How can I help? Oh, I can sign up for a clinical trial. Or, my gosh, I should support science or organizations that are helping to further research on these issues. I mean, you've been a catalyst for helping to tell the story of these scientists, the unsung heroes, right?
Right. I think a lot of people, and I agree that drug prices are high, but drug companies aren't just about money. They're about science. And what people have to understand is that in order to find a cure for Alzheimer's or anything, it costs, well, so far, I don't know, they've spent maybe $30-40 billion in trying to find a cure, haven't been able to get there yet. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just very important that we keep a balance and we have tolerance, but again, it's also making it possible for people who don't have a voice to have a voice. That's the job of a filmmaker. That's the job of communicators, that, to help other people that don't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, you said something about education, and when you're talking about the United Nations, education is, I think, the most important. Obviously, water and things like that are desperately important. Just the basic human needs. But after that,
yeah,
I think education is so important. I think one of the reasons we have such problems in our country is that our education system is really messed up. And I mean, listen, I can sit here and wax on about what we need. I'm not sure how to fix it, but I do know that we need people. I heard something the other day that was kind of funny. He said, if you're going to be a football player, you got to know how to play football. And if you're going to be a doctor, you got to go to med school. And if you're going to be a lawyer, you got to go to law school. And if you're going to be an actor, you better learn something about acting. But if you want to go into government, you just go to government. You just get elected, and all of a sudden you're there. That's kind of, I'm not talking about the people that are career government people. Those people are the ones that I have tremendous respect for, because they work in administration, but Republican or Democrat. They're career people, and they understand how the system works and how to keep the machine moving forward. And I just think that we need to have more people in our leadership that have been trained to be leaders.
Well, and that's a fundamental fact here that you bring light of. I think what you also brought to light during this interview, which I think is incredibly inspiring, especially during these times, is empathy. We've been talking a lot recently about empathy, and our late chairman, the former Congressman Louis Stokes, he was a statesman. You knew Lou, and he talked about working with his mother, single parent, taught him to work with his head so he doesn't have to work with his hands. So that he and his brother could focus on their education, to your point. And he said, you know, George, no one could ever take that away from me. No one could ever take that away from Lewis Stokes and his statesmanship. And he also used to tell me over and over again, you've got to work within the system to change the system.
Right.
Lewis Stokes. He worked within the U.S. Congress for 30 years to continue story after story. We could go on and on about what that man did, but working within the system to change that system. And it started with his mother, and he knew how hard she had worked when he held her hand when she was dying, and he felt the calluses on her hands and realized, my gosh, my mom paid the ultimate price. She worked with her hands, and here she was telling her sons to work with their head so they don't have to work with their hands. James Keach, award-winning actor, producer, director, philanthropist, incredible human being, leader. I could go on and on for days. What is up next for you in the incredible game-changing work you're doing, including your most recent documentary on Linda Ronstadt?
Well, actually, we have another film about Linda Ronstadt. It's called Linda and the Mockingbirds. Linda, in order to do an interview for The Sound of My Voice, which is the documentary that just came out, she said, James, would you guys come to Mexico with me with Jackson Brown and 50 or 30 Latino musicians and singers? I support this school up in San Francisco called Los Sensotles, which means the Mockingbirds. And she said, and I'll do your interview there. I won't do it in San Francisco. So we went with them on a trip across the border, and it was at the time when all the terrible things were going on at the border. So it became a film about, it's a musical film about immigration, about family, about dealing with the truth in her life, a little bit about her Parkinson's. It's really a beautiful film, and I'm really proud of it. So we just finished that one, and we have other films that we're doing. We're going to do the Glenn Campbell narrative, like we did Walk the Line.
Okay.
And we're going to do Linda Ronstadt's narrative, you know, and hopefully going to be doing a film about West Point, which that's when I keep talking about duty, honor, country with HR, with HR. And who's a great man. He's got a book coming out right now. I think it probably dropped yesterday, called Battlegrounds. I'm excited to read that. What a great man he is. And we got a lot
HR
of
McMaster.
Yeah,
Great man.
he's a great man.
Absolutely.
Right.
How can folks find the Linda Ronstadt film, the current one? Is it on Amazon?
Amazon, HBO Max. Yeah.
And what's the name of it?
The Sound of My Voice.
The Sound of My Voice on Amazon and HBO Max. Find it today. Inspiring. James Keach, changing the world. We'll be back with you. Thank you for all you're doing, my friend.
You too, George. You too. Thanks a lot.